when your own blood sells you to a beast. They say family protects you. Mine sold me like livestock. My brothers, the ones I'd trusted my whole life, just handed me over to Kael Draven, the most feared alpha in the Northern Territories. Payment for their failures. Collateral for their empire of lies. I'm being dragged into the mountains now, storm howling, chains cold against my wrists. They told me he's a monster, a killer, that I won't last a week. Maybe they're right. But if I'm going to die, I'm taking someone down with me. Stick around till the end. You won't believe what happens. Drop a like and comment your city below. The rain hit like fists. Elara Vance pressed her forehead against the cold window of the transport vehicle, watching the world dissolve into sheets of water and darkness. Her wrists ached where the restraints had been, removed an hour ago, but the ghost of metal still bit into her skin. She rubbed at the red marks absently, though it did nothing to ease the deeper wound. Her brothers had sold her, not metaphorically, not in some dramatic, exaggerated sense. Literally. Signed documents, negotiated terms, shook hands with a man whose reputation made grown soldiers flinch, payment in full for debts rendered. She'd seen the contract herself, shoved across the mahogany desk in her eldest brother's office 3 days ago. Her name in neat print beside a sum that made her stomach turn. Byron hadn't even looked at her when he'd explained, just stared at the paperwork like it was a shipping manifest. It's already done, Elara. The deal's been struck. She'd laughed. Actually laughed, because what else could you do when your entire reality tilted sideways? You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Byron's voice had been flat, administrative, the same tone he used to fire staff. The Vance Empire is hemorrhaging money. Father's debts went deeper than any of us knew. Draven offered a solution. A solution? Her voice had climbed. I'm your sister, not a... You're a resource. That had been Marcus, her younger brother, though only by 2 years. He'd been standing by the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. At least he'd had the decency to look uncomfortable. And right now, you're the only thing we have that Kael Draven wants. The memory made her throat tight even now, hours later, as the transport climbed higher into mountain territory. She forced herself to breathe slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Her therapist had taught her that back when her biggest problem was managing social anxiety at corporate events. What a joke that seemed now. How much longer? She asked the driver, a grizzled man who hadn't spoken more than 3 words since they'd left the city. Hour. Maybe less if the road holds. If the road holds? Perfect. She might not even make it to her imprisonment, just tumble off a cliff in a mudslide and save everyone the trouble. The vehicle shuddered over a pothole, and Elara grabbed the handlebar above her head. No seatbelts in this thing. Apparently, safety wasn't a priority when you were cargo. She caught her reflection in the dark window. Pale face, dark circles under her eyes, hair that had once been carefully styled now falling in damp tangles around her shoulders. She looked like hell. Good. Maybe Kael Draven would take one look at her and decide the deal wasn't worth it. Except she knew better. Men like him didn't back out of deals. And from everything she'd heard, everything whispered in back rooms and news reports carefully worded to avoid libel, Kael Draven wasn't the type to show mercy. He'd carved out his territory in the Highlands 20 years ago, back when he was barely more than a kid himself. Took on the old pack structures, dismantled them, rebuilt everything under his own rule. People called him the Iron Alpha. Some said he'd killed his own father to take power. Others claimed he'd walked into a rival pack stronghold alone and walked out covered in blood. Elara didn't know what was true, but she knew this. When Byron had said Draven's name, he'd gone pale. That told her everything. The transport took a sharp turn, and through the rain she caught her first glimpse of the compound. It sat like a fortress against the mountain face, stone and steel, built to withstand sieges. Lights burned in narrow windows. Guard towers flanked the main gate. It looked exactly like what it was, the home of a warlord. Her pulse kicked up. She pressed her hands flat against her thighs, trying to stop them from shaking. Fear was useless. Fear got you killed. She'd learned that much growing up in the Vance family, where weakness was blood in the water. Stay sharp, stay alive, find a way out. The gate opened as they approached, heavy iron sliding back with a groan that echoed even over the storm. The driver pulled into a courtyard lit by harsh floodlights. Figures moved in the shadows. Guards, she assumed, though she couldn't make out details through the rain-streaked windows. The vehicle stopped. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the driver cut the engine, and the silence felt like a held breath. "End of the line," he said, not looking at her. Elara's hand went to the door handle, but before she could open it, the door swung wide from the outside. A woman stood there, tall, lean, dressed in tactical gear with a sidearm strapped to her thigh. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes were the color of slate. "Out," she said. Not cruel, just matter of fact. Elara stepped into the rain. It soaked through her jacket immediately, cold and punishing. She gasped despite herself. "This way." The woman turned without waiting, and Elara had no choice but to follow. They crossed the courtyard quickly, boots splashing through puddles. Elara's clothes clung to her skin, and her teeth started to chatter. She hated that, hated showing any sign of weakness, but she couldn't stop it. The woman led her through a side entrance into a stone corridor that smelled like wet earth and something else. Smoke, maybe. Or metal. The walls were bare except for sconces holding actual torches, which seemed absurdly medieval until Elara remembered where she was. This wasn't the city. This was the frontier. Different rules. They climbed a staircase, turned down another corridor, and finally stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. The woman knocked once. "Sir?" "The delivery." Elara's stomach turned at the word. Delivery, like she was a package. "Enter." The voice from inside was low, rough-edged. It resonated in a way that made Elara's spine straighten involuntarily. The woman opened the door and gestured for Elara to go in. She did, because what choice did she have? The room was larger than she expected, office maybe, or a study. A fire burned in a massive stone hearth on one wall, casting flickering light across dark wood furniture and shelves lined with books. Maps covered another wall, marked with pins and lines she couldn't decipher, and standing in front of the fire, back to the door, was a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. He wore simple clothes, black shirt, dark pants, boots, but there was nothing simple about the way he held himself, like a blade at rest, contained energy. He didn't turn around immediately. "Close the door," he said. The woman obeyed and left. The latch clicked softly. Elara stood dripping on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, every instinct screaming at her to run even though there was nowhere to go. The man finally turned. She'd expected someone older, scarred, brutal-looking. Instead, Kyle Draven looked like he might have been handsome if not for the hardness in his face. Sharp jaw, strong features, eyes that were almost amber in the firelight, and so direct she felt pinned in place. He studied her for a long moment. "You're smaller than I expected," he said finally. Elara's temper flared despite her fear. "Sorry to disappoint." His eyebrow lifted slightly. "I didn't say I was disappointed." He moved to a side table, poured something from a decanter into a glass. "You're cold, observant, and hostile. You paid for me like livestock. What did you expect, gratitude?" Kale's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, annoyance. She couldn't tell. He held out the glass. "Drink this. It'll help." Elara didn't move. "Is it poison?" "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have paid what I did." Fair point. She crossed the room slowly, took the glass from his hand without touching his fingers, and drank. Whiskey. Good whiskey, smooth and burning all the way down. She coughed despite herself. "Not a drinker?" Kale asked. "Not of battery acid, no." That actually got a reaction, a faint curve at the corner of his mouth that might have been a smile on someone else. On him, it just made him look more dangerous. He gestured to a chair near the fire. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." "Suit yourself?" He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, watching her. "Your brothers told me you'd be difficult." "My brothers can go to hell." "Eventually." His tone was casual, like they were discussing weather. "For now, they're useful." Elara's hands tightened around the glass. "So what happens now? You lock me in a cell? Put me to work? What exactly did you buy?" Kale was quiet for a moment, and the silence stretched uncomfortably. "What do you think I bought?" he asked finally. "I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Your brothers sold you as collateral for their debts. Those debts are considerable." He picked up a folder from the desk, flipped it open. 17 million in outstanding loans, another 8 in defaulted contracts. The Vance empire is a house of cards held together by fraud and desperation. Elara's chest tightened. She'd known things were bad, but they thought I wouldn't notice, Kyle continued, almost conversational. Thought they could bury the evidence, restructure, and come out clean. But I have people who find things, and what they found was interesting. "So you blackmailed them into giving me up?" "No." He closed the folder, set it aside. "I offered them a way out. Partial debt forgiveness in exchange for you. They took it without hesitation." The words hit like a slap. Without hesitation. "Why?" Her voice came out rougher than she intended. "Why me?" Kyle looked at her for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted. Something almost cautious. "Because you're worth more than they know," he said finally. "That's not an answer." "It's the one you're getting tonight." Elara wanted to throw the glass at him, wanted to scream, but she forced herself to stay still, stay controlled. Falling apart wouldn't help. "So what now?" she asked. "What are the terms of my imprisonment?" "You're not imprisoned," she laughed bitterly. "Really? Because it sure feels like you're free to move around the compound, free to eat, sleep, go where you please within the walls. You'll have your own quarters, your own space." Elara stared at him. "Why?" "Because I'm not a monster, despite what you've been told. You're a warlord who bought a woman to settle a debt. I'm a strategist who made an investment." His eyes locked on hers. "And I protect my investments." The word should have been insulting. Should have made her angrier, but there was something in the way he said it, something that didn't sound like possession. It sounded almost like a promise. She didn't trust it, couldn't afford to. "I want to leave," she said quietly. "No." "You said I wasn't imprisoned." "You're not. But you're also not leaving. Not yet." He pushed off the desk, closed the distance between them until he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Your brothers are still out there, Elara, still scheming. If you go back now, they'll use you again, trade you to someone worse or worse than that. I can take care of myself." "Can you?" His voice dropped lower. "You were raised in luxury. Private schools, corporate galas. The worst thing that ever happened to you was probably a bad stock tip. You're not built for the world your brothers are playing in." Rage flared hot in her chest. "You don't know anything about me." "I know more than you think." "Really? Like what?" For a moment she thought he might actually answer, but then he stepped back, putting distance between them again. "Mira will show you to your room," he said, turning toward the door. "That's it? That's all you're going to tell me?" Kyle paused, hand on the doorknob. "Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." "I don't want to talk tomorrow. I want answers now." He looked back at her, and for just a second, his expression softened, just a fraction. "I know," he said quietly, "but some answers take time." Then he was gone, door closing behind him with a soft click. Elara stood alone in the room, dripping water onto expensive rugs, hands shaking with adrenaline and fury and something else she couldn't name. What the hell had she just walked into? The quarters Mira led her to were nicer than expected. Private suite with a bedroom, bathroom, and small sitting area. Windows overlooked the compound, though Elara noticed they didn't open all the way. Escape-proof then, figured. "Clothes in the closet," Mira said, gesturing. "Should fit, bathroom stocked. If you need something, use the comm panel by the door." "And if I try to leave?" Mira's expression didn't change. "Don't." Not a threat, just a statement of fact. After Mira left, Elara stripped out of her wet clothes and stood under a hot shower until her skin turned pink and her muscles stopped shaking. She dried off, found sleep clothes in the closet, soft cotton that smelled like cedar, and collapsed onto the bed. She should have been too wired to sleep. Instead, exhaustion dragged her under like a riptide. She dreamed of storms and amber eyes and a voice that promised things she didn't understand. Morning came with weak sunlight filtering through the windows and the smell of coffee. Elara jolted awake, disoriented, heart pounding. For a second, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all crashed back. Right, sold, mountains, warlord. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Someone had left a tray on the side table while she slept, coffee, toast, fruit. The fact that they'd been in her room without her waking was disturbing, but she was too hungry to care. She ate quickly, drank the coffee black and burning, and tried to think. Kyle had said she wasn't a prisoner, but also that she couldn't leave. He'd said he was protecting his investment, but wouldn't explain why she was valuable. Nothing about this made sense, unless, what if it wasn't about money? What if her brothers had sold her for something else? The thought made her skin crawl. She needed information, needed to understand what she was dealing with. After dressing in clothes from the closet, practical stuff, dark jeans and a sweater, she tried the door. It opened. Okay, so not locked in. That was something. The corridor outside was empty, but she could hear sounds from deeper in the compound. Voices, footsteps, the clang of metal. She followed the noise. The compound was bigger than it had seemed last night. Corridors branched off in multiple directions. She passed training rooms where people sparred, a massive kitchen where staff prepped food, an armory that made her pulse spike. Everyone she passed gave her long looks, but nobody stopped her. Finally, she found herself in what looked like a central hall. High ceilings, long tables, a few people eating breakfast, talking in low voices. And at the far end, standing in front of a wall-sized map, was Kyle. He was talking to two men, one older with silver hair, one younger with a scar across his jaw. They were discussing something on the map, pointing to locations Elara couldn't see from here. She hesitated. Then Kyle looked up, straight at her, like he'd sensed her presence. Their eyes locked across the room. He said something to the men who nodded and left. Then he crossed the hall toward her, moving with that same controlled energy she'd noticed last night. "You're up," he said. "Apparently. Did you sleep? Why do you care?" His mouth twitched. "Conversation's going to be difficult if you answer every question with hostility. Then maybe don't buy people." "Noted." He gestured toward a side room. "Walk with me." It wasn't really a request. Elara followed him into a smaller space, looked like a library. Shelves packed with books, a window overlooking the mountains, comfortable chairs. Kale closed the door behind them. "I need to know something," Elara said before he could speak. "What exactly do my brothers think you're going to do with me?" Kyle leaned against the door, studying her. "They think I'm going to keep you here as leverage. Insurance against them trying anything stupid." "And is that what you're doing?" "Partially." "What's the other part?" He was quiet for a long moment, like he was weighing something. Then he moved to a desk in the corner, opened a drawer, and pulled out a leather portfolio. "I need to show you something," he said, "but I need you to keep an open mind." Warning bells went off in Elara's head. "Why do I feel like I'm not going to like this?" "Because you're smart." He held out the portfolio. "Look." She took it slowly, half expecting it to burst into flames. Inside were sketches, pencil drawings on thick paper. Of her. Elara's breath caught. It was her face, her hair, her eyes, captured in detail that was almost photographic. Different angles, different expressions. Some were studies of her hands, her profile, the curve of her neck. They were beautiful, and they were impossible. When her voice cracked, she cleared her throat, tried again. "When did you draw these?" "I didn't." Kale's voice was quiet. "I found them." "Found them where?" "In my father's things, after he died." Elara looked up sharply. "Your father drew me?" "No." Kale moved closer, and she could see tension in his jaw. "I drew them, years ago, before I ever met you, before I even knew your name." The room tilted. "That's impossible," Elara whispered. "I know. People don't just dream about strangers and—" "I know." His voice was rough now, strained. "Believe me, I know how insane this sounds. But I've been seeing your face in my head since I was 17 years old. In dreams. In visions I couldn't explain. And when your brothers came to me with their proposal, when they showed me your photo..." He trailed off. Elara's hands were shaking. The portfolio slipped from her fingers, sketches scattering across the floor. "This is insane," she said. "Yes." "You're lying." "I'm not." "Then you're crazy." "Maybe." Kale crouched down, started gathering the sketches. "But crazy or not, you're here, and I'm not letting you go. Because of drawings, because of some delusion?" He looked up at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her step back. "Because you're the only person who's ever made the beast quiet," he said softly. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Elara wanted to run, wanted to scream, but her feet wouldn't move, and her voice wouldn't work, and all she could do was stare at this man who claimed he'd been dreaming of her for years. "What beast?" she finally managed. Kale stood slowly. "The one that's been trying to tear me apart since I took control of this territory. The rage, the violence, the thing that makes me dangerous." He paused. "When you're near me, it stops." "That's not possible." And yet, Elara's mind raced. This was insane, impossible, and yet the sketches were real. The dates on them, she'd seen dates, years old, from before they'd ever met. "I need air," she said abruptly. "Elara, I need air." She pushed past him, yanked open the door, and practically ran into the corridor. Behind her, she heard Kyle call her name, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because if what he was saying was true, then everything she thought she knew about the world had just shattered, and she had no idea how to put it back together. Elara didn't stop until she hit the outer courtyard, where the morning air cut through her sweater like glass. Her breath came in ragged gasps, not from exertion, but from the sheer impossibility of what she'd just seen. Sketches, dozens of them. Her face rendered in charcoal and pencil, dated years before they'd ever met. Either Kale Draven was the most elaborate liar she'd ever encountered, or something deeply strange was happening here. Neither option was comforting. She pressed her palms against the cold stone wall, trying to ground herself. The compound was coming alive around her. Guards changing shifts, kitchen staff hauling supplies, the distant clang of metal from what sounded like a forge. Normal sounds, mundane sounds. Everything here seemed so ordinary on the surface, except nothing about this was ordinary. "You run fast for someone who claims she's not afraid." Elara spun around. Mira stood a few feet away, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She'd changed out of last night's tactical gear into simple work clothes, but the gun at her hip remained. "I'm not running," Elara said, voice sharper than intended. "Could have fooled me." Mira tilted her head slightly. "Kyle sent me to check on you. Tell him I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "Well, I didn't ask for your opinion." Mira's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You've got teeth. Good. You'll need them here." Elara straightened, crossing her own arms in an unconscious mirror of Mira's posture. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means this place isn't the city. Soft doesn't survive in the highlands." Mira gestured toward the compound walls. "Half the people here have killed someone. The other half have watched someone die and didn't flinch. If you're going to make it, you need to be harder than you look." "I never asked to be here. Nobody asks for the hand they're dealt. But you play it anyway." Mira's eyes were sharp, assessing. "Kyle's given you more freedom than most would. Don't waste it feeling sorry for yourself." The words stung because they were true. Elara hated that they were true. "He showed me drawings," she said before she could stop herself. "Of me. From years ago." Mira's expression didn't change. "I know." "You know?" "Everyone close to Kyle knows. He's been looking for you for a long time." Elara's stomach dropped. "That's insane." "Maybe, but insane doesn't make it less real." Mira jerked her chin toward the main building. "Come on. You want answers, there's someone you should meet." "I don't want to meet anyone. I want..." "What? To go back to your brothers who sold you? To pretend none of this is happening?" Mira's voice hardened. "You're here now. Might as well understand why." Elara wanted to argue, but what was the point? She did want answers. And standing in a courtyard having a breakdown wasn't going to get her any. "Fine," she said. "Lead the way." They went back inside, but instead of heading toward the main hall, Mira took her down a different corridor, older, the stone walls darker, torches burning in iron brackets. The temperature dropped as they descended a staircase that spiraled into the mountain itself. "Where are we going?" Elara asked, unease creeping up her spine. "The archives." "That sounds ominous." "Everything sounds ominous when you're scared." "I'm not scared." Mira glanced back at her. "Sure." The staircase ended in a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron bands. Mira pushed it open and warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of old paper and leather. The room beyond was massive, carved directly into the mountain rock, shelves stretching 20 feet high and disappearing into shadows. Books, scrolls, documents stacked in organized chaos. In the center of it all sat a man who looked like he'd been there since the mountain was young. Ancient didn't quite cover it. He was small, hunched over a desk covered in manuscripts, white hair falling past his shoulders. His hands shook slightly as he turned a page, but his eyes, when he looked up, were sharp and clear. "Mira," he said, voice like gravel. "You brought her." As requested, Mira stepped aside. "Elara, this is Torin. He's been Kael's advisor since before I was born." Torin set down his pen carefully, studying Elara with an intensity that made her want to squirm. "So, the one from the visions." "I'm not from any visions," Elara said flatly. "I'm a person who got screwed over by her family." "Both can be true." Torin gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit. We have much to discuss." Elara didn't move. "I don't need a history lesson. I need to understand what's happening to me." "They're the same thing." Torin stood slowly, bones creaking audibly. He shuffled to one of the shelves, ran his fingers along the spines of books until he found what he wanted. "Tell me, girl, what do you know about pack bonds?" "Nothing. I'm not part of this world." "You are now." He pulled down a leather-bound volume, blew dust off the cover. "Pack bonds are spiritual connections between alphas and their chosen. Rare. Most alphas never find theirs. But when they do..." He opened the book, showed her a page covered in faded ink and strange symbols. "The bond calls to them, sometimes for years before they meet." Elara's throat went dry. "That's folklore." "Folklore exists because it happened first." Torin tapped the page. "Kael's father had visions too. Met his mate in a dream 3 years before he found her in a border town. Nearly drove him mad, the waiting." "So you're saying Kael dreamed about me because of some mystical connection?" "I'm saying the bond doesn't ask permission. It simply is." Torin closed the book. "Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. The question is, what will you do about it?" "I'll leave. That's what I'll do." "And go where? Back to brothers who'd sell you again in a heartbeat?" Torin's expression hardened. "You're safer here than you've ever been in your life. Kael would burn this compound to the ground before he'd let anyone harm you." "He doesn't even know me." "He's known you longer than you think." The words hung in the dusty air between them. Mira shifted near the door. "We should go." Kael wanted her back before the council meeting. "Council meeting?" Elara's head snapped around. "What council meeting?" "The regional alphas gather monthly," Mira said. "Neutral ground, discuss territory issues, settle disputes. It's happening tonight." Torin made a noise low in his throat. "And they'll all want to see the woman Kael traded for. Expect scrutiny, girl. Expect challenges." Elara's pulse kicked up. "Challenges?" "You're an outsider. Unknown. Some will see you as weakness." Torin's eyes were hard. "They'll test you. Test Kael through you. Be ready." "Great, just what she needed." Mira touched her shoulder. "Come on. You need to eat something before tonight." They left Torin to his books, climbing back up into the main levels. Elara's mind spun with everything she'd heard. Pack bonds, visions, regional politics. This was so far beyond anything she'd ever dealt with in the corporate world, it might as well have been a different planet. "Mira," she said as they walked, "why are you helping me?" Mira was quiet for a moment. "Because Kael asked me to. And because I've seen what happens when he doesn't have an anchor." "An anchor?" "The rage he mentioned? It's real. I've watched him nearly kill people over minor infractions. Watched him fight the shift so hard he broke his own bones." Mira's voice dropped. "Since you got here, he's been calm, focused. Whatever you are to him, it's working." Elara didn't know what to say to that. They reached the main hall where food was being laid out for lunch. Bread, cheese, roasted meat that smelled incredible. Elara's stomach growled despite everything. "Eat," Mira said. "You're going to need your strength." Elara filled a plate, found a seat at one of the long tables. A few people nodded at her. Most ignored her. She was okay with that. Better than being stared at. She was halfway through her meal when someone slammed a hand down on the table next to her plate. "So you're the famous Elara Vance?" She looked up. A man stood over her, big, heavily muscled, with a scar running from his temple to his jaw. His eyes were cold, assessing. "And you are?" Elara kept her voice level despite her racing heart. "Garrick, second in command." He leaned down, getting in her space. "I'm the one who keeps this place running while Kyle wastes time on pet projects." Elara set down her fork carefully. "I'm not a pet project." "No? Then what are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're a liability, a distraction, a soft city girl who's going to get people killed when Kyle loses focus protecting you." Heat rose in Elara's chest. "I didn't ask to be here." "Doesn't matter what you asked for. Matters what you are." Garrick's voice carried across the hall, and conversation stopped. People were watching now. "You're a weakness, and we don't tolerate weakness." Elara stood slowly, meeting his eyes even though he had 6 inches and probably 80 pounds on her. "Then maybe you should take that up with Kyle." "Maybe I will." "Is there a problem here?" The voice cut through the tension like a blade. Kyle stood in the doorway, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Garrick straightened but didn't back down. "Just getting acquainted with your new acquisition." That's not what it looked like. Kale crossed the room in long strides, stopping beside Elara. His presence felt like a shield, and she hated how relieved she was to have it. "You have something to say. Say it to me." Garrick's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, the council's going to ask questions tonight about her. About why you traded significant resources for what, Garrick?" Kale's voice was dangerously quiet. "Choose your next words carefully." The hall had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had stopped moving. Garrick looked between Kyle and Elara, calculation clear in his eyes. Finally, he took a step back. "Just looking out for the pack. I appreciate your concern. But Elara is under my protection. Anyone who challenges that challenges me directly." Kale's eyes swept the room. "That goes for all of you." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, others looked skeptical. Garrick gave a curt nod and walked away, but the hostility in his shoulders was clear. Elara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Kale turned to her. "You okay?" "Fine," she said, even though her hands were shaking. "I can handle myself." "I know, but you shouldn't have to." He glanced around the hall. "Come with me. We need to talk before tonight." She wanted to refuse on principle, but she also wanted answers more than she wanted to be stubborn. They went back to the library from that morning. Kyle closed the door, turned to face her. "Garrick's an ass, but he's not wrong," Kyle said. "The council will question this. Question you." "Then maybe you should have thought of that before dragging me here." "I did think of it. I just don't care what they think." He moved to the window, staring out at the mountains. "But you need to understand what you're walking into tonight. These alphas, they're not like your corporate executives. They respect strength, show weakness, and they'll tear you apart." Great pep talk. He turned back to her, and something in his expression softened. "I'm trying to prepare you. By telling me I'm going to get torn apart? By telling you the truth." He crossed back to her, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his amber eyes. "You're stronger than you think, Elara. You survived your family's betrayal. You're surviving this. But tonight, you'll need to show these people that strength. I don't know how to be what you need me to be. I don't need you to be anything except yourself." His hand lifted like he might touch her face, then dropped. "Just don't let them see fear, even if you feel it." Elara's breath caught. This close, she could feel the heat radiating off him, could smell something like pine and smoke. It should have been intimidating. Instead, it felt oddly safe, which was insane given everything. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked quietly. "The bond thing aside, why protect me? Why care?" Kael was quiet for a long moment. Because everyone I've ever cared about, I've lost. My mother, my father, people I trusted. His voice roughened. And then I started seeing your face, and something in me knew. If I could just find you, if I could just keep you safe, maybe I could stop being this thing I've become. What thing? A weapon. A monster. The thing people fear in the dark. He looked at her, and the rawness in his expression nearly broke her. When you're here, I remember what it feels like to be human. Elara's throat tightened. She wanted to say something cutting, something to maintain distance, but the words wouldn't come, because she'd seen it too. The way people looked at him, not with respect but with fear. The way he held himself like he expected a fight at any moment. He was lonely, and maybe so was she. I can't promise I'll be what you need, she said finally. I'm not asking you to promise anything. Just stay. Give this a chance. A chance at what? At finding out if the visions were right. His eyes held hers. At seeing if this bond is real. Before she could answer, a knock sounded at the door. Sir? Mira's voice. The council's arriving early. You're needed. Kael cursed under his breath. I'll be there. He looked back at Elara. Stay here. I'll send someone when it's time. Kael... But he was already gone, door closing behind him with a soft click. Elara stood alone in the library, heart pounding, mind racing. She'd come here expecting a prison. Instead, she'd found something far more complicated. And tonight, apparently, she was going to be put on trial for it. The hours crawled by. Mira brought her clothes for the evening, dark pants, a fitted shirt, a jacket that looked expensive but practical. Dress like you belong, she said, not like you're trying to impress anyone. Elara changed, studied herself in the mirror. She looked different, harder somehow. Like the girl who used to stress about networking events was someone else entirely. Maybe she was. When the sun started to set, Mira returned. It's time. They went deeper into the compound than Elara had been before, down into a massive underground chamber lit by dozens of torches. A round table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs already half filled with people. Alphas, she assumed. They radiated authority in a way that made the corporate sharks she'd known look like minnows. Kael stood near the head of the table, talking to a woman with silver streaked through her dark hair. He looked up as Elara entered, and something passed between them, a silent exchange she couldn't read. The conversation stopped as people noticed her. Elara forced herself to walk forward, chin up, shoulders back, like she had every right to be here. A man with graying temples and predator eyes leaned back in his chair. So, this is the infamous Elara Vance. Infamous? Elara raised an eyebrow. I haven't done anything yet. A few people chuckled. The man's expression didn't change. Marcus Trent, Northern Reach, he introduced himself. I'm curious what Kael sees in you that's worth 17 million in debt forgiveness. Maybe you should ask him. I'm asking you. Elara met his eyes steadily. Then I guess you'll stay curious. More chuckles, louder this time. Marcus's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Kael spoke. Gentlemen, ladies, we have territory matters to discuss. Elara's presence here isn't up for debate. Isn't it? A woman across the table leaned forward, the silver-haired one Kael had been talking to. You made an unprecedented trade, Kael. We have a right to understand why. You have a right to mind your own territory, Elena, Kael said coolly. Mine is not your concern. It is when it affects regional stability. Elena's eyes cut to Elara. No offense, dear, but you're an unknown quantity, and unknown quantities make people nervous. Then get to know me, Elara said before she could stop herself. The room went quiet. Elena's eyebrows rose. Bold. I like that. She gestured to an empty chair beside Kael. Sit. Let's see what you're made of. Elara took the seat, very aware of every eye on her. Kael's presence beside her felt like an anchor, solid, steady. The meeting began. Territory disputes, resource allocation, border skirmishes. Elara listened, trying to follow the complex web of alliances and grudges. These people spoke in a language she didn't fully understand, references to old conflicts, family lines, ancient agreements. But she caught the undercurrents, the power plays, the subtle threats wrapped in diplomatic language. It wasn't so different from corporate boardrooms, really, just more honest about the violence. And what about the Vance situation? Marcus asked, nearly an hour in. Their financial collapse affects several territories. Kale's trade stabilized some debts, but there's still fallout. Such as? Kale's voice was neutral. Such as Byron and Marcus Vance reaching out to other packs for support, trying to rebuild. Marcus's eyes shifted to Elara. They want their sister back, claim she was taken against her will. Elara's blood went cold. That's a lie, she said, voice harder than she felt. Is it? Marcus leaned forward. Because from their perspective, you were delivered here as payment. That sounds pretty involuntary. My brothers sold me to cover their own mistakes. Whether I came here voluntarily or not doesn't change that fact. Elara stood, unable to sit still any longer. They're thieves and cowards who bankrupted their own company through fraud. If they're telling people I was kidnapped, it's because they're trying to manipulate sympathy they don't deserve. The room was silent. Strong words, Elena said quietly. Can you prove them? I can. Elara looked at Kael. The documents, the ones showing their financial crimes. I want them made public. Kael's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Approval? That would destroy what's left of their credibility, he said. Good. They destroyed my life. Time to return the favor. Marcus laughed. Short, sharp bark. Well, she's got spine. I'll give her that. Elena nodded slowly. If you can back up those claims, it would solve several problems. The other packs wouldn't support the Vance brothers if they knew the truth. I can back them up, Kael said. My people have been documenting their activities for months. Then do it, Elara said. Burn them down. The words felt good, felt right. For the first time since this nightmare started, she wasn't running or hiding or hoping someone would save her. She was fighting back. The meeting continued, but the energy had shifted. People looked at her differently now, not with pity or contempt, but with a kind of wary respect. When it finally ended and people filed out, Elena stopped beside Elara. That was either very brave or very stupid, she said. Can't it be both? Elena smiled, a real smile this time. I think you'll survive here after all. She glanced at Kael. Treat her well, Draven. Women like this don't come around often. Then she was gone, leaving Elara alone with Kael in the emptying chamber. He turned to her, expression unreadable. You meant it, about exposing your brothers. Every word. That's going to make you a target. I'm already a target. At least this way, I'm fighting back. She met his eyes. Unless you have a problem with that. No? His mouth curved slightly. I have no problem with that at all. Something passed between them, an understanding, maybe, or the beginning of one. Elara didn't trust it yet, didn't trust him, or this situation, or the insane idea that they were connected by some mystical bond, but she trusted her own anger, her own need for justice, and right now that was enough. Come on, Kael said. Let's get you out of here before someone else decides to test you. They started toward the exit, but before they reached it, Garrick appeared in the doorway. His expression was dark, dangerous. We need to talk, he said to Kael. Now. About? About the fact that the Vance brothers just put a bounty on your head. Garrick's eyes cut to Elara. $500,000 to anyone who returns her to them alive. Double that to anyone who kills you and brings her back. The words hit like a punch. Kael's expression went cold, controlled. When? Hour ago. It's already spreading through the networks. Elara's pulse hammered. Her brothers had just declared war, and she was the prize they were fighting over. Kael moved before Elara could process the words. His hand closed around her wrist, not rough, but firm, and he pulled her behind him in one fluid motion. How many know? He asked Garrick, voice flat and controlled in a way that made the hair on Elara's neck stand up. Everyone by now, it hit the underground channels 20 minutes ago. Already got 3 separate confirmations. Garrick's jaw was tight. Byron Vance is offering clean money. No questions asked. That kind of bounty? People will come. Let them. Kael's voice dropped into something dangerous. This compound has stood against worse. Not with her as the target. Garrick jerked his chin toward Elara. She's a liability now, a marked target that puts everyone here at risk. Elara yanked her wrist free from Kael's grip. I'm standing right here. Stop talking about me like I'm a piece of furniture. Garrick's eyes cut to her, hard and assessing. You want to be part of this conversation? Fine. Your brothers just made you the most expensive target in 3 territories. Every mercenary, bounty hunter, and desperate pack looking for quick cash is going to come for you. And when they do, they'll go through us to get you. Then send me back. The words came out before Elara could stop them. If I'm putting people in danger. No. Kael's voice was absolute. You don't get to make that choice for me. I just did. He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her step back. You go back to them, you die. Maybe not immediately, but they'll use you until you're worthless, then dispose of you. I'm not letting that happen. You don't know that? I know men like your brothers. I've dealt with them my entire life. His voice roughened. They don't value anything they can't leverage. The moment you stop being useful, I get it. Elara cut him off, hating how her voice shook. But I won't be responsible for people dying because of me. Noble sentiment, Garrick said flatly. Doesn't change the math. We need to lock this place down. Double the perimeter guards, set up kill zones at the access points, run background checks on every supplier and contractor. Do it, Kael said. And pull the intel team. I want to know everyone Byron's been in contact with in the last 72 hours. Garrick nodded and left without another word. Silence fell heavy in the stone chamber. Elara could hear her own heartbeat, feel the adrenaline making her hands shake. She clasped them together to hide it. You should have let me go, she said quietly. And you should stop assuming I make decisions I haven't thought through. Kael moved closer, and she hated how her body responded. Not with fear, but with something else entirely. Your brothers made their move. Now we make ours. What does that mean? It means we hit them first, hard enough that they can't recover. His expression shifted into something calculating and cold. You wanted to expose them. We're going to do more than that. We're going to dismantle everything they've built. Elara's breath caught. How? Financial attacks, seizing assets, turning their allies against them. Your brothers built their empire on fraud and leverage. We're going to use that against them. He paused. But I need you to be sure. Once we start this, there's no going back. They'll know you're working with me. They'll come after you even harder. They're already coming after me. Not like this. This will be war. Elara thought of Byron's face when he'd told her the deal was done. The casual cruelty, the complete lack of remorse. Marcus had at least looked uncomfortable, but he'd gone along with it anyway. Her own blood, her own family, and they'd thrown her away like garbage. Do it, she said. Burn it all down. Something flickered in Kael's eyes. Approval, maybe? Or respect. All right, but first, you need to understand what you're walking into. He led her through corridors she hadn't seen before, down into what looked like a war room. Maps covered the walls, marked with territories and supply routes. Computer screens showed live feeds from various locations. 3 people worked at terminals, their fingers flying over keyboards. This is command, Kael said. Every operation we run is coordinated from here. A woman looked up from one of the screens. Mid-30s, sharp features, eyes that missed nothing. Sir, we've been monitoring the bounty chatter. It's spreading faster than expected. How fast? 6 territories already. Could be 8 by morning. She glanced at Elara. She's famous now, in the worst possible way. Show me the financials, Kael said. The woman pulled up documents on the main screen. Elara recognized some of them. Vance Industries contracts, loan agreements, partnership deals. But there were others she'd never seen before. These are offshore accounts, the woman explained. 17 of them, all linked back to Byron and Marcus Vance. They've been siphoning money from the company for years. We're talking close to 30 million. Elara's stomach turned. 30 million? Give or take. Most of it's hidden behind shell corporations, but we've traced the connections. The woman zoomed in on a network diagram that looked like a spider web. They've been running a long con, borrowing against the company's assets, pocketing the loans, then covering the shortfalls with more loans. Classic Ponzi scheme. How did they think they'd get away with it? Elara asked. They didn't plan to. They were setting up exit strategies, new identities, properties in non-extradition countries. You were part of the exit plan. The words hit like ice water. What? Trading you to KL cleared some debts, but more importantly, it bought them time. They figured KL would keep you here, away from the authorities, while they finished moving assets and disappeared. The woman's expression was neutral, clinical. You were never meant to survive this. Elara sat down hard in the nearest chair. Her brothers hadn't just sold her. They'd set her up to die. How long have you known this? Her voice came out hollow. Since before they made the trade, Kyle said quietly. It's why I accepted their offer. If you'd stayed with them, I'd be dead. She looked up at him. You saved my life. I had selfish reasons. I don't care. And she didn't. Whatever his reasons, he'd pulled her out of a death trap she hadn't even known existed. Show me everything. I want to know every crime they've committed. They spent the next 2 hours going through documents. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, money laundering. Her brothers had broken so many laws, Elara lost count, and they'd done it with the company her father had built from nothing. He'd be devastated, she said quietly, staring at a contract her father had signed years ago. Legitimate then, corrupted later. He loved this company, poured everything into it. Then we honor his memory by taking it back from the people who destroyed it. Kyle set down the file he'd been reading. I can seize the assets through legal channels. The fraud evidence is solid. But it'll take time, and your brothers might run before we can lock everything down. So we don't give them time, Elara said. We move now, tonight. It's not that simple. Why not? You have the evidence. You have connections. Use them. She stood facing him across the table. They put a bounty on my head thinking I'd be helpless. Prove them wrong. Kale studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to the woman at the terminal. Sarah, start the process. I want freezes on every account, every asset, everything they own by dawn. Sarah's fingers were already moving. On it. And get me Byron's phone records. I want to know everyone he's talked to in the last month. Already pulling them. Elara watched the operation unfold with a strange sense of detachment. This was really happening. Her brother's empire was being dismantled in real time. There's something else, Sarah said, frowning at her screen. The bounty didn't just come from Byron. There's a secondary source. Same amount, different payment structure. Who? Kale's voice sharpened. Still tracing it, but the routing suggests Highland territory, possibly Trent. Marcus Trent. The alpha from the council meeting. Elara's stomach dropped. Why would he put a bounty on me? She asked. Because you're a threat, Kale said grimly. You exposed the Vance brothers' fraud at the meeting. If their collapse spreads, it'll affect territories that were tied to their business deals. Trent probably has money in their accounts. So he wants me dead to protect his investment, or to pressure me into giving you up. Kael's jaw tightened. Either way, it's a declaration. Of what? War. The word hung in the air like smoke. Sarah swore softly. Sir, we've got movement on the perimeter. 3 vehicles approaching from the eastern access road. They're not ours. Kale was across the room in 2 strides, looking at the surveillance feeds. How far out? 5 minutes? Maybe less. Sound the alarm. Full lockdown protocol. He looked at Elara. You need to go somewhere safe. Where's safe in a compound under attack? The vault. Deep in the mountain, reinforced walls, single access point. He grabbed her arm. Mira will take you. I'm not hiding. This isn't negotiable. Yes, it is. Elara pulled free. If people are coming here because of me, I'm not going to cower in a hole while others fight my battles. You'll get yourself killed. Then teach me not to. She met his eyes. You said I was stronger than I thought. Prove you meant it. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then his expression shifted into something almost like pride. All right, but you do exactly what I say. No arguments. Deal. He led her to the armory at a run. The compound had come alive around them. Guards taking positions, weapons being distributed, blast doors grinding shut. The efficient chaos of a military operation. In the armory, Kael pulled a handgun from a rack, checked the chamber, handed it to her. Ever fired one of these? No. Then now's a bad time to learn. But if someone gets past me and comes at you, point and squeeze. The kick will bruise your wrist, but that's better than being dead. Elara took the gun. It was heavier than she expected, cold and solid in her hand. Stay behind me, Kael said. If I tell you to run, you run. Understand? Yes. They moved to a defensive position overlooking the courtyard. Elara could see the eastern gate from here, massive iron reinforced with steel, designed to withstand a siege. It wouldn't be enough if the attackers had explosives. How many do you think there are? She asked. Doesn't matter. Could be 3, could be 30. We're ready either way. Kael's voice was calm, controlled. He'd done this before. Many times, probably. The vehicles came into view, black SUVs with tinted windows. They stopped just outside the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lead vehicle's door opened and a man stepped out. Byron Vance. Elara's breath caught. Her eldest brother stood in the glare of the compound's floodlights, hands raised in a gesture of peace. This is a diplomatic visit, Byron's voice carried across the courtyard, amplified somehow. I'm here to negotiate the return of my sister. He's got balls, I'll give him that, Kael muttered. You're not actually going to negotiate with him? No, but I'll hear what he has to say. Kael moved to the edge of the wall, looked down. You're not welcome here, Vance. Turn around and leave. I will. As soon as you return what's mine. Elara isn't yours. She never was. She's family, blood. That matters in this world. Byron took a step closer to the gate. I'm willing to double my original offer. $34 million for her safe return. Not interested. $40 million, final offer. Elara's hands tightened on the gun. Her brother was negotiating for her like she was a commodity, like she wasn't even human. She doesn't want to go back, Kael said, and I don't negotiate with men who put bounties on my head. That was a misunderstanding, a contingency plan in case negotiations failed. Byron's tone was smooth, practiced. But we're talking now, like civilized people. Surely we can reach an agreement. Here's my agreement. Leave now, and I won't kill you where you stand. Byron laughed. You won't kill me. You need what I have. And what's that? Information about who else wants Elara. About the people coming for her who make me look like a minor inconvenience. Byron's expression hardened. You think I'm your biggest problem? I'm trying to save her life. Kael went still. Explain. Not from out here. Let me in. We'll talk properly. No. Elara's voice rang out before she could stop herself. She stepped forward into view. You don't get to come in here and pretend you care about my life. Byron's face shifted when he saw her. Surprise, calculation, something else she couldn't read. Elara, thank God you're alive. I was worried. You were worried about your escape plan falling apart, she cut him off. I know about the offshore accounts. The fraud. The fact that you planned to let me die here while you ran. His expression went cold. Who told you that? Does it matter? It's true. She moved to stand beside Kael, gun still in her hand. You sold me, traded me like property, and now you want me to believe you're here to save me? I did what I had to do to keep the family afloat. You did what you had to do to save yourself. Her voice shook with rage. And now you're here because your plan failed. Because Kael didn't kill me or lock me away. Because I'm still alive and capable of exposing everything you've done. Byron's mask slipped. Just for a second, she saw real anger flash across his face. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. You've always been naive, little sister. Always thought the world was fair. But it's not. And the people coming for you now, they don't care about fairness. They'll tear you apart just to get to Kael. Who? Kael's voice was dangerous. Who's coming? The coalition. Old families who don't like upstarts taking power in the highlands. You've made enemies, Draven. Powerful ones. And they see Elara as your weakness. They're wrong. Are they? Byron looked between them. Because from where I'm standing, you've risked everything for a woman you barely know. That's not strategy. That's obsession. Enough. Kael's hand moved to his sidearm. You've delivered your warning. Now leave. Not without my sister. She's not leaving. Then we have a problem. Byron stepped back and the other vehicle doors opened. Armed men emerged, at least a dozen, all carrying weapons. The courtyard erupted. Kael shoved Elara down as gunfire shattered the night. She hit the stone hard, pain lancing through her shoulder. The gun skittered from her hand. "Stay down!" Kael returned fire, controlled bursts that found targets. Men dropped, but more kept coming. Elara scrambled for the gun, fingers closing around the grip just as someone vaulted over the wall beside her. She spun, brought the weapon up. Marcus, her younger brother, his face was twisted with something between desperation and rage. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't let you destroy us." His hand shot out, grabbing for her. Elara pulled the trigger. The gun kicked hard, the sound deafening. Marcus stumbled back, hand going to his shoulder where blood bloomed dark against his shirt. "You shot me," he said, sounding genuinely shocked. "You grabbed me." Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the gun. "What did you expect?" Marcus's expression hardened. He lunged again, and this time Elara didn't hesitate. She fired twice more. He went down. Elara stared at her brother's body, breath coming in ragged gasps. She'd just shot him. Maybe killed him. Her own brother. "Elara!" Kael's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to move." She tore her eyes away from Marcus, saw Kael fighting 3 men at once. He moved like violence made flesh, precise, brutal, efficient. Bodies fell. But more kept coming over the walls. They were going to be overrun. Elara grabbed the gun with both hands, forced herself to focus. She fired at a man climbing the wall, missed, fired again. This time he fell. The recoil hurt. Her wrists would be black and blue tomorrow. If there was a tomorrow. Kael reached her side, grabbed her arm. "The vault, now." "What about now?" They ran. Behind them, the compound descended into full combat. The sound of gunfire echoed off stone walls. Someone was screaming. Kael led her down corridors she'd never seen, deeper into the mountain. The sounds of fighting faded but didn't disappear. They reached a massive steel door. Kael punched in a code, pressed his palm to a scanner. The door ground open. "Inside," he said. Elara stumbled through. The vault was exactly what he'd described. Reinforced walls, dim lighting, supplies stacked in corners. A safe room built to outlast a siege. Kael followed her in, sealed the door. The locks engaged with heavy thuds. Silence fell like a weight. Elara sank to the floor, gun still clutched in her hands. She was shaking all over, adrenaline crash hitting hard. "Did I kill him?" Her voice came out small. "Marcus? Did I don't know." Kael crouched in front of her. "But you defended yourself. He came at you." "He's my brother." "He stopped being your brother when he tried to drag you back to the people who wanted you dead." Elara looked at the gun in her hands. There was blood on the grip. Marcus's blood. She was going to be sick. Kael gently took the weapon from her, set it aside. "Breathe. Just breathe." She tried. Failed. Her chest felt too tight, her throat closing. "Elara, look at me." She did. Kael's eyes were steady, grounding. "You survived," he said quietly. "That's what matters. Everything else we'll deal with later." "I shot my brother." "I know." "I might have killed him." "I know." His hand settled on her shoulders, warm and solid. "And you might have to live with that. But you're alive. That's what counts." Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "I don't want to be here. I don't want any of this." "I know that too." His thumb brushed along her collarbone, the touch careful. "But you are here. And you're stronger than you think you are. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true." Above them, something heavy hit the vault door. Once. Twice. Kael's head snapped up. "They found us. Can they get in?" Not easily, but eventually. He stood, moved to a panel on the wall, started pulling out weapons. "We need to be ready." Elara pushed to her feet. Her legs felt like water, but she forced them to hold. "What do we do?" "We wait. My people will be fighting to take back the compound. Once it's secure, we can get out." He handed her a fresh gun. "Until then, we hold this position." More impacts on the door, rhythmic now. They were using something to try to break through. "How long can that door hold?" Elara asked. Long enough? That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. The pounding continued, methodical, patient. Whoever was out there wasn't giving up. Elara checked the gun's chamber like she'd seen Kyle do. Full magazine, safety off. I need to know something, she said. What? If they get through, if this goes bad. She met his eyes. Did you mean it? About the bond? About seeing me in visions? Cale's expression softened. Every word. Then show me. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket, one of the sketches from the portfolio. Even in the dim light, Elara could see the detail. Her face, drawn years ago by a man who hadn't known her name. I drew this when I was 19, Kyle said quietly. The visions started the year before. At first I thought I was losing my mind, but they kept coming. Your face, your voice, details about you I couldn't possibly know. What details? The scar on your left ankle from a bike accident when you were 8. The way you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking. The fact that you hate roses but love wildflowers. He paused. Was I right? Elara's breath caught. She did have a scar on her left ankle. She did bite her lip, and she'd always preferred wildflowers. This is insane, she whispered. I know. It shouldn't be possible. And yet here we are. The pounding on the door stopped suddenly. In the silence, Elara heard voices, muffled, arguing. Then an explosion rocked the vault. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim red glow that turned everything the color of blood. They're breaching, Kyle said. Get behind me. Elara moved, gun raised, heart hammering. The vault door groaned, metal scraped against stone. Then it burst inward in a shower of sparks and twisted steel. Smoke poured in. Through it, Elara could see shapes moving. Kyle fired. Someone screamed. More gunfire. The vault turned into a kill box. Elara fired blindly into the smoke, trusting instinct. The gun kicked in her hands. Once, twice, 3 times. A body fell through the doorway, then another, but more kept coming. Kyle was shouting something, but she couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. A hand grabbed her from behind. She spun, bringing the gun around, but someone caught her wrist. Twisted. Pain exploded through her arm, and the gun clattered away. She was yanked backward, pulled through the smoke toward the breached door. Kyle. Her voice came out raw. She saw him turn, saw recognition and fury flash across his face. He started toward her, but someone tackled him from the side. Elara fought, kicked, clawed at the hands holding her. But whoever had her was strong, trained. They dragged her through the doorway, into the corridor beyond. The last thing she saw before something hit the back of her head was Kyle fighting his way toward her. Then darkness swallowed everything. Pain dragged Elara back to consciousness, sharp and throbbing at the base of her skull. She tried to lift her hand to touch it, but her wrists wouldn't move. Zip ties cut into her skin, binding her arms behind her back. Her eyes opened to dim light and the smell of diesel fuel. She was in a vehicle, moving fast, judging by the way her body swayed with each turn. The floor beneath her was cold metal, vibrating with engine noise. Voices filtered through the ringing in her ears. Said she needed to be unharmed. A little knock on the head won't kill her. She was fighting. Draven's going to tear this territory apart looking for her. Let him. By the time he figures out where we are, we'll be across the border. Elara kept her eyes half closed, breathing steady, letting them think she was still out. Her head pounded, and nausea rolled through her stomach, but she forced herself to focus. Think. Assess. Survive. She counted 3 distinct voices, all male. The vehicle was large, cargo van maybe, no windows that she could see from her position on the floor. They'd breached the vault, grabbed her, and gotten out while Kyle was occupied, which meant Kyle might be dead. The thought hit like ice water. She shoved it away. No, she couldn't think about that. Not now. She needed to stay sharp, stay present. How much longer? One of the voices asked. 20 minutes to the rendezvous. Then she's their problem. Rendezvous. They were handing her off to someone else. Byron, Marcus, or someone worse. Elara tested the zip ties carefully. Tight, but not impossibly so. If she could find something sharp, maybe she could cut through them. The van hit a pothole and her head bounced against the floor. She couldn't stop the small grunt of pain that escaped. She's awake. Footsteps. Then hands grabbed her shoulders, hauled her into a sitting position against the van wall. A face swam into focus, middle-aged, scarred, eyes flat and professional. Mercenary, not pack. Hired muscle. "Welcome back," he said. "Hope the headache's not too bad." Elara said nothing, just stared at him. "Not the chatty type? That's fine. We don't need you to talk. Just need you breathing." He leaned back. "For what it's worth, this isn't personal, just business." "Business?" Her voice came out rough. "Is that what you call kidnapping?" "I call it fulfilling a contract. You're worth a lot of money to certain people." "My brothers?" "Among others." He pulled out a phone, checked it. "We'll be at the handoff soon. Best behavior, yeah? Make this easy on everyone." Elara's mind raced. 20 minutes. She had 20 minutes to figure a way out of this. Her eyes scanned the van's interior, 2 men up front, driver and passenger. The one talking to her made 3, possibly more she couldn't see. No weapons within reach. Nothing sharp, just cargo straps and empty crates. She was going to have to improvise. "I need water," she said. "I'm going to throw up." The mercenary sighed. "You're not going to throw up. Head injury, concussion probably. Nausea is a symptom." She swallowed hard, made her voice shake. "I'm serious. I'm going to be sick." He studied her, weighing whether she was faking. Then he grabbed a water bottle from a crate, unscrewed the cap. "Small sips," he said, holding it to her lips. Elara drank. The water was warm and tasted like plastic, but it helped clear her head. She let some dribble down her chin, playing up the weakness. "Thanks," she whispered. He set the bottle aside, turned away. That's when she moved. Elara threw herself forward, leading with her shoulder. She hit him low and hard, all her weight behind it. He stumbled, caught off balance. She didn't stop. Brought her knee up into his gut. He doubled over with a grunt. "She's loose," someone shouted. Elara spun, hands still bound behind her, and ran for the van's back doors. If she could get them open, maybe she could jump. Arms closed around her from behind. She was lifted off her feet, slammed back against the wall. Air left her lungs in a rush. "Nice try," the mercenary wheezed, blood on his lip where she'd caught him. "But that was stupid." He backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded through her cheek. Her vision went white, then red. When it cleared, she was on the floor again, and the mercenary was standing over her with a knife. "We were told to deliver you intact," he said. "But intact doesn't mean unmarked. You pull something like that again, I'll make sure you regret it." Elara tasted blood. Her tongue had cut against her teeth. She spat it onto the floor. "Go to hell." He smiled without humor. "You first." The van slowed, turned onto what felt like a rougher road. Through the thin walls, Elara could hear gravel crunching under the tires. They were close to the rendezvous, which meant her time was up. The van stopped. The engine cut out. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of doors opening, footsteps on gravel, voices outside, too muffled to make out words. The back doors opened and cold air rushed in. Elara was hauled to her feet, half dragged out of the van. Her legs nearly buckled, but she forced them to hold. They were in a clearing surrounded by trees, dark except for the headlights of several vehicles. The van she'd been in, plus 2 SUVs and a sedan. And standing in front of the sedan was Byron. He looked different out here, more dangerous. The corporate Polish was gone, replaced by something harder. He wore dark clothes, a gun visible at his hip. "Elara." His voice was almost gentle. "I'm sorry it came to this." "No, you're not." "Fair enough." He gestured, and the mercenaries brought her forward. "But I am sorry you made this difficult. If you'd just cooperated, you'd still be planning to kill me once you didn't need me anymore." Byron's expression flickered. "You've been listening to Draven's lies. I've been reading your financial records, offshore accounts, shell corporations. You were planning to disappear and leave me here to take the fall for everything. You don't understand the pressure I was under." "I understand you're a coward who sold his own sister to save himself." Elara's voice was steady, despite the fear crawling up her spine. "Where's Marcus?" "Hospital. You shot him. He tried to grab me." "He was trying to save you." "By dragging me back to you? That's not saving. That's trading one prison for another." Byron's jaw tightened. "I don't have time for this. The coalition representatives will be here any minute. They're paying triple what I offered Draven, and they want you delivered tonight. Elara's blood went cold. The coalition? You sold me to them? I made a deal that benefits everyone. They get leverage against Draven. I get enough money to disappear and start over. Everyone wins. Except me. You'll be treated well. They just need you as insurance. They're going to kill me the moment they don't need me anymore, and you know it. Elara pulled against the mercenary's grip. You're signing my death warrant. You should have thought of that before you exposed our family's business to the regional council. Byron's voice went hard. You made yourself a liability, Elara. This is just damage control. Headlights cut through the darkness. Another vehicle approaching. Byron straightened. That'll be them. Remember, cooperate, and you might live through this. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened. 4 people emerged, 3 men and a woman, all moving with military precision. The woman approached Byron. She was tall, blonde, cold-eyed. You have her? As promised, Byron gestured to Elara. Unharmed, mostly. The woman's gaze raked over Elara, assessing. She doesn't look like much. Draven seems to think she's worth protecting. That's all that matters. True. The woman pulled out a phone, typed something. Payments transferring now. Once it clears, she's ours. Elara's mind raced. She was out of time. In seconds, she'd be handed over to people who wanted to use her as a weapon against Kael. She had to do something. You're making a mistake, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The woman's eyebrow lifted. Am I? Draven isn't going to negotiate for me. He doesn't work that way. Elara forced confidence into her voice. He'll come for me. And when he does, he won't stop until everyone involved is dead. Let him try. The woman's smile was cold. We've prepared for that contingency. Have you prepared for the fact that I know everything about my brother's financial crimes? That I have evidence that could destroy their business partners across 3 territories? Byron went pale. She's bluffing. Am I? You think Draven didn't make copies of everything? You think he didn't give me insurance in case something like this happened? Elara looked at the woman. You're buying damaged goods. The moment Byron's crimes go public, every territory he's done business with will be investigated, including yours. The woman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. What evidence? Account numbers, wire transfers, names of everyone involved in the money laundering operation. Elara was making it up as she went, hoping the confidence in her voice sold it. Draven has it all, and if I don't check in with him every 6 hours, it goes to the authorities. All of it. She's lying, Byron said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe, maybe not. The woman studied Elara. But if she's telling the truth, this transaction just became significantly more complicated. The payment's already processing. Stop it. The woman held up a hand. I need to make a call. She walked away, phone to her ear. Byron rounded on Elara. What the hell are you doing? Surviving. Elara met his eyes. Something you taught me, actually. Always have leverage. You don't have leverage. You're bluffing. Am I? She let the question hang. The woman returned, expression unreadable. My superiors want verification. If you have this evidence, prove it. Elara's heart hammered. She had nothing. No evidence, no leverage, no backup plan. But she couldn't let them see that. The main account number, she said, pulling details from what she'd seen in Kael's command center. 77349-628. Registered to a shell company called Meridian Holdings. $53 million moved through it in the last fiscal year. Byron's face went ashen. The woman typed into her phone. Waited. Her expression shifted. Surprise, then calculation. It's real, she said quietly. The account exists. The amounts match. Of course it's real, Elara said, praying her voice didn't shake. I told you, I know everything. The woman looked at Byron. You said she was just collateral. You didn't mention she was sitting on evidence that could bring down half the regional economy. I didn't know. Then you're either incompetent or you lied. Either way, this deal is off. She gestured to her people. We're leaving. Wait. Byron started forward. We had an agreement. We had an agreement based on accurate information. You failed to provide that. The woman turned to Elara. If we can't have you as leverage against Draven, we don't want you at all. You're a liability. She pulled her gun. Elara's breath stopped. Then the night exploded. Gunfire erupted from the tree line. The coalition soldiers dove for cover. Byron hit the ground. The mercenaries holding Elara scattered. And through the chaos came Kael, moving like death itself. He was bleeding, shoulder wound looked like, but it didn't slow him down. He fired as he moved, each shot precise. Coalition soldiers dropped. Mira appeared beside him, then Garrick, then a dozen others from the compound. They'd tracked her, found her, come for her. Elara dropped to the ground as bullets tore through the air above her. She rolled toward the nearest vehicle, using it for cover. Her hands were still bound. She rubbed the zip ties against the edge of the vehicle's undercarriage, sawing frantically. The plastic cut into her wrists, drawing blood, but she kept going. The ties snapped. Her hands came free. She looked up, saw Byron scrambling toward the sedan. He had a gun in his hand, and he was aiming at Kael's back. Elara didn't think, just moved. She launched herself at Byron, hitting him from the side. They went down in a tangle of limbs. The gun skittered away. Byron grabbed her throat, squeezing. "You stupid!" Elara drove her thumb into his eye. He screamed, grip loosening. She scrambled away, grabbed the gun he'd dropped. Byron lunged at her one more time. She shot him. The sound was deafening. Byron stumbled back, hand going to his chest. Blood spread between his fingers. He looked at her with something like surprise. Then he fell. Elara stood there, gun shaking in her hands, staring at her brother's body. She'd killed him, her own brother. "Elara!" Kael's voice cut through the shock. She turned, saw him running toward her. The coalition was retreating. The mercenaries were either dead or surrendering. The fight was over. Kael reached her, pulled her into his arms. "You're alive. Thank God you're—" "I killed him." Her voice sounded distant, hollow. "I killed Byron." Kael pulled back, looked at Byron's body, then back at her. "He would have killed you." "I know, but I still—" Her voice broke. "I know." Kael's hands framed her face, gentle, despite the violence still echoing around them. "But you survived. That's what matters." Elara wanted to believe him, wanted to feel something other than the numbness spreading through her chest, but all she felt was cold. Mira appeared beside them. "Sir, we need to move. More vehicles approaching from the south." "Ours or theirs?" "Can't tell yet." Kael's jaw tightened. He looked at Elara. "Can you walk?" She nodded. She thought she could anyway. They moved quickly toward the tree line. Garrick was coordinating the others, securing the mercenaries who'd surrendered. The approaching vehicles came into view, SUVs with high beams blazing. They stopped, and Elara's heart sank. More coalition forces? More mercenaries? But the doors opened and out stepped Elena, the alpha from the council meeting. She was flanked by her own people, all armed. "Stand down," she called out. "We're not here to fight." Kael didn't lower his weapon. "Then why are you here?" "Because word travels fast. We heard about the bounty, the attack on your compound, the kidnapping." Elena's eyes found Elara. "And we decided that the coalition has overstepped." "You're with the coalition," Kael said. "I'm part of the regional council. The coalition is a separate entity, old families trying to maintain control through intimidation." Elena gestured to the bodies. This is too far, and when I started making calls, I found others who agreed." 4 more vehicles appeared. Alphas emerged, Marcus Trent among them. Elara tensed, but Trent raised his hands. "Before you shoot, hear me out. I pulled my bounty. Publicly. An hour ago." "Why?" Kael's voice was hard with suspicion. "Because your woman stood in front of the council and told the truth about the Vance brothers. Because she had the spine to call out corruption even when it put her at risk." Trent's eyes shifted to Elara. "And because I did some checking. Everything she said was true. The Vance Empire was built on fraud, and a lot of us were invested in it." "So you're here to cover your own asses," Kael said. "Partially," Elena admitted, "but also because the coalition crossed a line. They want to destabilize the Highlands, create chaos, and sweep in to restore order under their control. We can't let that happen." Elara found her voice. What are you proposing? An alliance. Temporary, but official. Elena looked between Kael and Elara. You have evidence of financial crimes that touch multiple territories. We have the political weight to make sure that evidence actually matters. Together, we can dismantle the Vance network and cut off the coalition's local support. And in exchange? Kael asked. In exchange, you don't come after us for our involvement with the Vances. We make reparations, cooperate fully, and we move forward with clean slates. It was a deal with devils. Elara knew that. But it was also the only way to truly finish this. She looked at Kael. Your call. He studied the gathered alphas for a long moment. Then he lowered his weapon. All right, but if anyone tries to double-cross us, then you have our permission to burn our territories to the ground, Elena said. We're serious about this, Draven. The coalition has been a cancer in the Highlands for too long. It's time to cut it out. Kael nodded slowly. Then we have a deal. The tension broke. People started moving, coordinating, planning. Elara stood in the middle of it all, numb and exhausted and strangely detached. She'd killed her brother, shot him in cold blood to protect Kael, and she didn't feel guilty. She felt free. Mira touched her arm. Medical needs to check you out. That head wound, I'm fine. You're not. Come on. Elara let herself be led to one of the SUVs, where someone with a medical kit examined her head. Mild concussion, they said. Butterfly bandages for the cut. She'd live. She watched Kael coordinate with the other alphas, watched him move between authority and strategy with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He glanced over, caught her eye. Something passed between them, an understanding maybe, or recognition. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, they'd survived. And now came the hard part, making sure it meant something. 20 minutes later, Kael found her sitting alone on the tailgate of one of the vehicles. He sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. How are you holding up? He asked quietly. I killed my brother. I know. I should feel worse about it than I do. Should you? Kael turned to look at her. He sold you, tried to hand you over to people who would have killed you. He made his choices. He was still family. Family doesn't mean anything if it's only blood. Real family protects you, stands by you. His hand found hers. He stopped being your family the moment he put a price on your head. Elara's throat tightened. Where's Marcus? Hospital, still, under guard. He'll survive the shoulder wound. Kael paused. What do you want to do about him? I don't know yet. She looked at their joined hands. Everything's changed. Has it? I came here as cargo, property, something to be traded. She met his eyes. Now I'm… what? A strategist, an informant, a weapon against the coalition? Now you're free, Kael said. Everything else is up to you. Is it? Because it feels like I'm still trapped, just in a different cage. Then leave. The words were quiet but firm. If you want to go, I won't stop you. I said I'd protect you, and I meant it, but I won't keep you prisoner. Elara stared at him. You'd let me walk away? If that's what you want, yes. Even though the bond doesn't matter if you're not happy. I've been searching for you for years, Elara, but I never wanted to force you into something you didn't choose. He stood, put distance between them. So choose. Stay and help us finish this, or go. Either way, you'll be protected. Elara's mind spun. She could leave. Right now. Walk away from all of this. The violence, the politics, the impossible connection she didn't understand. Go back to… what? Her apartment was probably compromised. Her company connections were tied to her brother's fraud. She had no family left except Marcus, who'd tried to kidnap her. She had nothing to go back to. But here she had people who'd come for her, who'd risked their lives to save her, who looked at her not like property, but like someone worth fighting for. And Kael, who dreamed of her for years, who fought like hell to keep her safe, who was offering her freedom even though it clearly cost him to do it. She stood, crossed to where he stood. I'm staying, she said. Relief flashed across his face, quickly controlled. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She stepped closer. On one condition. Name it. I'm not staying as your… Whatever the bond makes me. I'm staying as your partner. Equal voice, equal say in what happens next. Kael's mouth curved slightly. You were always going to be that. Then we understand each other. We do, Elena called out from across the clearing. Draven, we need you for coordination. Kael looked at Elara. This is what it's going to be like. Constant strategy, constant politics. I spent 5 years in corporate acquisitions. I can handle politics. Not like this, you haven't. Then teach me. She held his gaze. You said I was stronger than I thought. Prove you meant it. Something shifted in his expression. Pride, maybe. Or respect. All right, he said. Let's go take down an empire. They walked together toward the gathered alphas, toward the planning and strategy that would dismantle everything her brothers had built. Elara Vance, former corporate executive, traded like property, hunted like prey, stepped into that circle of power and felt something settle in her chest. She'd survived. More than that, she'd fought back. And she was just getting started. The war room at Kyle's compound had never been this crowded. Alphas from 6 territories stood around the central table, their advisors filling the spaces behind them. Maps covered every surface, marked with territories, supply routes, financial networks. The air smelled like coffee and tension. Elara stood beside Kyle, her presence no longer questioned. The bruises on her face had faded to yellow-green, the cut on her head healing clean. But the look in her eyes had changed. Harder, sharper. She'd killed 2 men in the last 72 hours, her own brothers. That kind of thing left marks that didn't show on skin. The evidence is solid, Sarah was saying, pulling up documents on the main screen. We've traced 53 million through the Vance network in the last 18 months alone. Money laundering, fraud, embezzlement. But the real prize is this. She highlighted a section of the financial map. The coalition's been using the Vance brothers as a front, funneling money through their company to fund operations across the Highlands. If we expose the Vance crimes, we expose coalition involvement. Marcus Trent leaned forward, studying the data. How many territories are compromised? At least 8, maybe more. Sarah pulled up another file. But here's where it gets interesting. The coalition's money? It's coming from sources outside the Highlands. Foreign investors who want instability in the region. Why? Elena asked. Mining rights, timber contracts, land development. Elara spoke up, her voice steady. My father's company held exclusive contracts for resource extraction in 3 territories. When he died and my brothers took over, they started renegotiating those contracts. Higher prices, worse terms. The coalition promised better deals if they could destabilize the current power structure. Every eye in the room turned to her. How do you know that? Trent asked. Because I was there when they negotiated. I sat in on the meetings. Elara pulled a folder from the stack in front of her, slid it across the table. I didn't understand what I was seeing at the time, but looking back now, knowing what I know about their financial crimes, it's obvious. They were selling out the Highlands piece by piece. Kael's hand settled on the small of her back. Brief contact. Grounding. She felt the warmth of it through her shirt. Elena picked up the folder, flipped through it. Her expression darkened. This is treason. It's worse than treason, Elara said. It's systematic exploitation. The coalition doesn't care about pack politics or territory rights. They want resources, and they're willing to burn the Highlands to get them. Silence fell heavy in the room. So what do we do? One of the other alphas asked, a younger man Elara didn't know well yet. We can't fight foreign investors. We don't fight them. We expose them. Kyle's voice cut through the uncertainty. We take this evidence public, show every pack in the region what's been happening, turn the coalition's allies against them. That'll start a war, Trent said. We're already at war. We're just making it official. Kale looked around the table. Everyone in this room has been affected by the Vance network. We've all lost money, territory, people. This is our chance to take it back. And put who in charge? Elena's question was pointed. The Vance Empire controlled significant resources. Someone has to manage them. The room shifted. This was the real question, not whether to dismantle the Vance network, but who would fill the power vacuum afterward. Elara felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. Legally, I'm the heir, she said quietly. With Byron dead and Marcus facing criminal charges, The company assets default to me. You planning to run it? Trent asked. No. Elara met his eyes. I'm planning to dissolve it, break the company into smaller operations, distribute them to the territories they were stolen from, return what was taken. Murmurs rippled through the room. That's billions in assets, Elena said. You'd give it all away. It was never mine to keep. My father built that company on fair deals and honest work. My brothers corrupted it. I'm not going to profit from their crimes. Elara straightened. But I will oversee the dissolution. Make sure it's done right, that the resources go where they're supposed to. That'll take years, someone said. Then it takes years. Elara's voice was firm. I'm not looking for a quick payout. I'm looking for justice. Kale's hand pressed more firmly against her back. Pride, she thought. Or maybe just solidarity. Elena studied Elara for a long moment. Then she nodded. I can support that, but we'll need oversight. A committee to ensure transparency. Agreed, Elara said. I'll work with whoever you assign. And the coalition? Trent asked. We expose the Vance network, their funding dries up. But they won't just walk away. No, Kyle said. They'll fight back, which is why we need to be ready. The planning continued late into the night. Strike teams, legal strategies, media campaigns. They were building a war on multiple fronts: financial, political, physical. Elara contributed where she could, her corporate background suddenly invaluable. She understood contracts, asset structures, regulatory frameworks. Things the alphas knew instinctively about territory and pack law didn't always translate to the legal systems that governed business. But she was learning, fast. When the meeting finally ended and the other alphas filed out, Elara stayed behind with Kyle and his core team. You did good, Mira said, dropping into a chair. Half those alphas walked in here thinking you were dead weight. Now they're listening to you. They're listening to the evidence, Elara corrected. They're listening to you present it. There's a difference. Mira grinned. Trent looked like he'd swallowed glass when you said you were dissolving the company. He was probably counting on buying into it cheap, Garrick muttered. He'd been quiet during the meeting, standing watch near the door. Giving it away messes with everyone's calculations. Good, Elara said. Let them be uncomfortable. They've been comfortable too long. Kale caught her eye, something unreadable in his expression. Can I talk to you, privately? Elara nodded. They left the war room, walked through corridors that had become familiar over the past weeks. She'd memorized the compound's layout, learned its rhythms. It felt less like a prison now, more like something else. She wasn't ready to call it home yet, but it was closer than anywhere else she'd been. Kale led her to the library. Their library, she'd started thinking of it. The place where he'd first shown her the sketches, where everything had started to shift. He closed the door, turned to face her. You're going to destroy yourself doing this, he said quietly. Elara blinked. What? Dismantling the Vance Empire, overseeing the dissolution. You're taking on the weight of fixing your brother's crimes. His expression was serious. That's going to consume you if you're not careful. It's my responsibility? It's not. You didn't commit those crimes. You're choosing to fix them. That's different. He moved closer. I'm not saying don't do it, just don't lose yourself in the process. Elara's throat tightened. I don't know who I am anymore. Yes, you do. You're the woman who stood in front of a council of alphas and called out corruption, who shot her own brother to protect someone else, who decided giving away billions was more important than personal gain. Kale's hand lifted, cupped her face gently. You're stronger than you think. But strength doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone. I don't know how to ask for help. You don't have to ask. I'm offering. His thumb brushed along her cheekbone. Whatever you need, however long it takes. I'm here. The bond hummed between them. That strange connection she still didn't fully understand. But standing this close to him, feeling the warmth of his hand against her skin, it felt less foreign, less frightening. Why? She asked. Why do you care this much? I told you, I've been seeing your face for years, waiting for you. His eyes held hers. But it's more than that now. You're not just the woman from my visions. You're real, complicated, difficult, brave in ways I didn't expect. He paused, and I think I'm falling for the real you more than I ever fell for the dream. Elara's breath caught. She wanted to say something, to deflect or argue or make a joke, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she kissed him. It was impulsive, probably stupid, definitely complicated. But his mouth was warm against hers, his hands gentle as they settled at her waist. The kiss deepened, and Elara felt something in her chest crack open, some wall she'd been holding in place since her brothers had sold her. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Kyle rested his forehead against hers. "That was unexpected," he said. "Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises." He laughed, a real laugh, unguarded. "That you are." They stood like that for a moment, just breathing together. Then Elara stepped back. "We should probably get back to work." "Probably," but he was smiling. They returned to the war room where Sarah had new information waiting. "The coalition's moving," she said without preamble. "They know we have the evidence. They're trying to freeze assets, cut off our access to the financial networks." "Can they do that?" Elara asked. "They're trying, but we moved faster. Most of the critical accounts are already locked down under court order." Sarah pulled up a map. "But there's a problem. Marcus, your brother." Elara's stomach dropped. "What about him?" "He disappeared from the hospital 3 hours ago. Guards found unconscious, surveillance cameras disabled, professional extraction." "The coalition took him," Kyle said grimly. "Or he went willingly." Sarah zoomed in on a location. "We tracked his phone signal to this warehouse district, but it went dark 20 minutes ago." Elara stared at the map. Marcus. Her younger brother, who'd at least had the decency to look guilty when Byron had made the deal, who'd tried to grab her at the compound, but maybe, had been trying to save her in his own twisted way. "He's bait," she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. "They took him, or he went with them, knowing we'd track him, knowing I'd—" She trailed off. "It's a trap." "Obviously," Garrick said. "Question is whether we spring it." "We have to," Elara said. "He's still my brother, and if the coalition has him, they'll use him to get to you." Cale's voice was hard. "They tried to buy you from Byron. That failed. Now they're trying a different approach." "So we don't give them what they want." Elara looked at the map. "We go in prepared. Heavy force. No negotiations." "That's a lot of risk for someone who tried to kidnap you," Mira pointed out. "He's still family. Twisted, broken family, but family." Elara's jaw tightened. "And I'm not letting the coalition torture him for information about our operation." Cale studied her. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." He nodded slowly. "Then we go. But my way, my rules. Wouldn't have it any other way." They assembled a strike team in less than an hour. 15 people, heavily armed, moving in 3 vehicles. Elara insisted on coming, and Kyle didn't fight her on it. She'd proven she could handle herself. The warehouse district was industrial decay, abandoned buildings, broken windows, the smell of rust and chemicals. Perfect place for an ambush. 2 minutes out, the driver said. Elara checked her weapon. Kyle had given her a better gun this time, shown her how to use it properly. She still wasn't a great shot, but she was improving. The vehicle stopped a block from the target location. They moved on foot from there, using the buildings for cover. The warehouse Marcus's signal had come from was dark, doors hanging open. Too easy. "It's quiet," Mira whispered. "Too quiet," Garrick agreed. Cale signaled the team to spread out, cover all exits. Then he looked at Elara. "Stay close. If this goes bad, I run. I know." They entered the warehouse. Inside was open space, concrete floors, support pillars creating shadows. In the center, under a single light, sat Marcus. He was tied to a chair, head down, blood on his face. Elara's chest tightened. "Marcus, wait!" Cale's hand shot out, stopping her. "This is wrong. He's hurt. And they left him here like bait. Why?" As if in answer, lights blazed to life throughout the warehouse, blinding, disorienting. When Elara's vision cleared, she saw them. Coalition soldiers, at least 30, positioned on catwalks and behind cover, all armed, all aiming at Kyle's team. "Drop your weapons," a voice called out, the blonde woman from the clearing, "or we start shooting." Kale didn't move. "You touch any of my people, and I'll burn the coalition to the ground." Bold words from someone surrounded. The woman stepped into view on an upper catwalk. But I'm not here to fight. I'm here to negotiate. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Strong language, but fair. The woman's smile was cold. Here's my offer. Elara Vance walks out with me right now, and everyone else leaves alive. She doesn't, and this warehouse becomes a grave. Elara's heart hammered. This was it. The moment everything came down to a choice. No deal, she called out. The woman's eyebrow lifted. You're willing to let all these people die for you? I'm willing to stand with them instead of running. Elara stepped forward, away from Kael's protective position. You want me? Come down here and take me yourself. Elara, Kael's voice was warning. Trust me, she said quietly. The woman studied her for a moment. Then she descended the stairs, slow and confident. She stopped 10 feet away. You've got spine, I'll give you that. And you've got 30 guns pointed at people who haven't done anything except defend their territory. Elara's voice was steady. That's not strength, that's cowardice. Careful, I could shoot you right now. You could, but you won't. Elara took another step forward. Because I'm not valuable to you dead. You need me alive to leverage against Kael and the other alphas, to force them to back off the Vance investigation. Smart girl. Smart enough to know you're bluffing. Elara gestured to the soldiers. You shoot us. You start a war with 6 territories. The coalition can't afford that. You're already losing funding now that the Vance network is frozen. The woman's expression hardened. We have other resources. Dwindling ones. I've seen the financial projections. Without the money laundering operation, you've got maybe 6 months of operating capital. Less if the foreign investors pull out. Elara smiled without humor. And they will. Because we're about to make the Highlands a very expensive investment. You're betting your life on that analysis. I'm betting all our lives on it. Because I'm right. Elara held the woman's gaze. Let Marcus go. Pull your people back. And maybe we don't pursue criminal charges against the coalition members who weren't directly involved in the violence. That's your offer? That's my mercy. One time only. The woman laughed. You think you have leverage here? I know I do, because your bosses sent you here to negotiate, not to start a shooting war. If they'd wanted us dead, you would have opened fire the moment we walked in. Elara took another step. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to release my brother. You're going to pull your people out of the Highlands, and you're going to tell whoever's funding this operation that the party's over. And if I refuse, then we all die here. And the evidence we've compiled, every document, every transaction, every name, gets released to every media outlet and law enforcement agency in 3 countries. Elara's voice was ice. Your foreign investors, they'll run. Your local supporters, they'll turn on you to save themselves. The coalition will be finished. The warehouse was silent, except for the hum of the lights. The woman studied Elara. You'd really do it. Burn it all down. Without hesitation. More silence. Then the woman pulled out her phone, made a call, spoke in low tones Elara couldn't hear. When she hung up, her expression was unreadable. My superiors have agreed to your terms. We'll withdraw from the Highlands. Release our local assets. Cut our losses. Elara's knees nearly buckled with relief, but she kept her expression hard. And Marcus? The woman gestured. 2 soldiers cut Marcus loose, helped him to his feet. He was conscious, barely, blood crusting his face. Elara? His voice was rough. What? Later. She moved to support him, taking his weight. Can you walk? I think so. The coalition soldiers were already withdrawing, moving toward exits with military precision. The woman was the last to leave. She paused at the door, looked back. You would have made a good operative, she said. We could have used someone like you. I'd rather die, Elara said flatly. The woman smiled. Fair enough. Then she was gone, and the warehouse was empty except for Kael's team and Marcus. Silence fell. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, Mira said finally. She's not wrong, Kael added. He pulled Elara against him, held her tight. Don't ever do that again. Can't promise that. I know. He pulled back, looked at her. But try. Marcus coughed, drawing their attention. Elara, I'm sorry. For everything. She looked at her brother, beaten, broken, but alive. You helped them. I thought I was helping us, the family. He closed his eyes. But Byron, he went too far. I tried to stop him at the end, tried to warn you, but you still tried to drag me back at the compound. I was scared, thought if I could just fix things, make everything go back to the way it was. He trailed off. I was wrong. Elara didn't know what to feel. Anger, pity, exhaustion. You're going to testify, she said, about everything, the fraud, the coalition, all of it. I know. And you're going to face charges. I know that too. Marcus met her eyes. But I'm still your brother, for whatever that's worth. Elara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, It's worth something, just not what it used to be. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. That would have to be enough. They left the warehouse as dawn broke over the city. By the time they reached the compound, news was already spreading. The coalition's withdrawal, the Vance Empire's collapse, the formation of a new territorial alliance. Over the next 6 weeks, Elara oversaw the systematic dismantling of everything her brothers had built. Assets returned to the territories they'd been stolen from. Contracts renegotiated under fair terms. The company's legitimate operations were sold to local businesses, the profits distributed to victims of the fraud. Marcus testified, as promised. His cooperation bought him a reduced sentence, 10 years instead of life. Byron's body was buried quietly, no ceremony. Elara didn't attend. The highlands stabilized. The coalition's influence evaporated. Foreign investors pulled out, unwilling to risk the exposure. And through it all, Elara stood beside Kael, not as his property or his weakness, as his equal. The bond between them deepened, became something neither of them fully understood but both accepted. She still didn't know if it was mystical or just chemistry, and she'd stopped caring. It worked. That was enough. 6 months after her brothers had sold her, Elara stood in front of the regional council one final time. The dissolution was complete. The last assets had been distributed. Her family's empire no longer existed. You've exceeded every expectation, Elena said. The territories are stronger now than they've been in decades. It wasn't just me, Elara said. It was all of us. But you let it. That matters. Elena paused. The council has a proposition for you. Elara tensed. What kind of proposition? A seat at the table, permanent advisor position. You'd represent the business interests of the Highlands, ensure we never fall into the same patterns again. Elara looked at Kael. He nodded slightly. Your choice. She turned back to Elena. I'll do it, on one condition. Which is? I want full audit authority. Anytime, any territory. If I see corruption, I call it out. No exceptions. Elena smiled. I'd expect nothing less. Agreed. They shook hands. As Elara left the council chamber, Kael fell into step beside her. An advisor position, he said. That's a lot of power. Someone has to make sure you all stay honest. And you think you can handle it? Elara stopped, looked up at him. 6 months ago, my own brothers sold me to a warlord to cover their debts. I thought my life was over. And now? Now I've helped dismantle a criminal empire, negotiated a coalition withdrawal, and earned a seat at the most powerful political table in the region. She smiled. Yeah, I think I can handle it. Kael's expression softened. The woman from my visions was fierce, beautiful, strong, and she had nothing on the real you. Elara's breath caught. Then she grabbed his jacket, pulled him down, and kissed him hard. When they broke apart, both breathing heavy, she said, Take me home. The compound? Wherever you are. That's home now. They walked out together into the Highland sun. Behind them, the council chamber buzzed with politics and strategy. Ahead of them, the mountains rose sharp and beautiful against the sky. Elara Vance had been sold like property, hunted like prey, nearly broken by the people who should have protected her. But she'd survived. More than that, she'd conquered. And standing beside the alpha who dreamed of her, who'd fought for her, who'd given her the freedom to become something greater than anyone expected, she finally understood what the bond really was. Not chains, not destiny, choice. And she'd chosen this. Chosen him. Chosen the highlands and the harsh beauty of a world that didn't tolerate weakness. She'd been forged in betrayal, tested by violence, and tempered by her own strength. They'd called her the Alpha's bargain. Now they would call her something else. Queen.